Hello, my darlings. This is Micah Riot here with Ink Medicine Podcast, episode 21. Today, we're going to talk about why are tattoos so expensive? I think it's a question that people think a lot about, but they don't actually ask because it seems rude. So they don't say it out loud, at least not to me most of the time. But before we do that, I'm just going to give you a quick personal update because some of you actually like these, and it's my show, and I like to give you updates. So here we go. So first, this last week, I finished 3 large, beautiful, gorgeous, colorful pieces on 3 different amazing humans that I have been working on for a long time. One of them has a back piece and a lot more work from me. And so even though she moved to Bend, she comes back to visit her family and get tattooed. So I've been working on her for many years now. Like 7 or 8, probably. And so yesterday we finished a large thigh piece that we've been working on for the last, 6 months or so. And another person I was working on, Mark, who you've heard from in this podcast. He was one of the very early episodes. We finally finished his sleeve of gorgeous, soft flowers, and I will post it so you will see it soon. And then the third piece I finished also yesterday was on another lovely human who's been coming to me for not as long, about a total of 6 months or so, and we did a really intricate, sort of heady, but also very artful piece on her thigh about family and belonging and breaks and trust and trauma and parental love and parental trauma. And it just kind of came together and we ended up with this really cool image and knowing exactly what to do, even though we didn't know each other when we started. It's been a really awesome journey with all 3 of those folks. And I'm sad that those 3 large pieces are now done. And as my partner said, well, there's now room for more large pieces to be excited about. And indeed, I have been talking to people who have all kinds of cool ideas, and I am excited to bring them to life. So on to the next little chapter of tattoo career. So the other thing I wanted to tell you is that I bought my iPad in 2015 and the pencil. Also, I was thinking I would learn Procreate and I would start designing tattoos in Procreate, and I was intimidated. So I played around a little bit and was like, no, I'm done. This is too much. I'll just keep doing it the old school way on paper with a pencil and transfer paper and like tracing things and copying things. And it's now 2023, so it's been 8 years. And in the last few months, I picked up my iPad and started to do some of my work on it, thanks to Wolf, another person you heard me talk with a few episodes ago. At some point, Wolf told me that, yes, they do use their iPad. They kind of moved from the old school way of using paper and pen and carrying around transfer paper and pencils and blue pencils and all the tricks we use. And they started using their iPad, and they're so happy because there's way less waste, which I care about very much, of paper and copies, way less waste of ink on the printer. Yay, that shit's expensive. And it's easy and fun, and they can do it anywhere. And I started seeing, after we had that conversation, I believe I started seeing TikTok videos of how to use Procreate, just little bite-sized pieces of information that I could absolutely watch a few times and try and start to use. So I'm now utilizing my iPad to do some designing, and I'm very happy about it. So 8 years later, my iPad's still going strong. Thank you. Thank you. The other little update for those of you who love to read, which is a lot of you, I have not been reading as much this year as I wanted to, or as much as I did last year, for sure. So this year, I've been reading about a book a month. The podcast has taken some of my time and, more importantly, energy. I somehow came across a book that I thought would be really interesting, and I just got it from the library. It's called Roses in the Mouth of a Lion by Bushra Rehman. And it's about queer people coming of age. It's a coming of age story. It's about people who are not white. And I believe it takes place in Queens in New York. And it looks really good. And I started it, and it's so far very good. I'm really excited to have another wonderful book in my hands, just being in a reading slump. So just so you know, if you are interested, this book looks excellent. Check it out on Goodreads or wherever you look at book ratings if you'd like. And last little quick update is that I interviewed Dr. Shante Cofield for my podcast for Ink Medicine, and I'm going to put that episode out next week. And they are just like a super delightful human. I enjoy talking to them so much, and I think you will too. Their work is in marketing. They're an Instagram marketing guru of sorts, an influencer of sorts, and they make a living by creating courses and teaching small business owners how to be successful on Instagram specifically, but their work is applicable to many modalities. And I know about them because, of course, part of what I have to do to be a successful tattoo artist is be on Instagram and continue to update and continue to market myself in ways that I'm able to. So I follow them originally for that reason. But I just think they're delightful human, and I really like their philosophy around being a business owner and around being a person in this world. So I asked them to become a guest on my podcast, and they said yes. And so we did our episode, and it was freaking amazing. And actually, they are the reason I have this podcast. They are the person who said, "Just do it. Just do it. What do you have to lose? This is a good time. It's a good space. It's not overly saturated, and you should do it if you want to." Okay, they didn't say that thing about saturation. I think I just made that up because I want to believe it is not saturated, overly saturated. Anyway, that will be coming out next week, and you definitely don't want to miss that one. And let's talk about why tattoos are so damn expensive. Let's talk first about the costs of running a business such as mine. First, your first expense will be rent. Rent, when you rent your own space, of course, that can range depending on where you're renting it, that can range between $1,000 and up $10,000 a month, $5,000 a month when you're running a space, when you're an independent artist working out of your own shop. Other tattoo artists who work in shops with other artists and don't own the shop but rent a chair from the shop usually pay in percentage, although that's shifted now, and sometimes people pay a specific amount per month, regardless of how much they actually work. But when I was doing that, when I was working for a shop, my charge for the shop was 50%. So if I made $100 that day, I gave the shop $50. So you can understand that felt pretty exploitative, although in the moment I was happy because I got to do something I loved and was super ecstatic about. I got to learn how to do it, and I got basically a stream of clients. Because the shop was so popular, I never really was in a shortage of clients. I was always working. And also I didn't have very many expenses at the time. So making like $500 a week was okay for me at that time. My next shop after that charged me 40% of what I made, which was a lot better, but still felt like quite a bit. And so when I ended up going to work on my own, my very first space at Active Space, I started paying $460 a month, which felt like a giant relief. Like I could work a little bit less. I could just not hustle quite as hard. That was great. It went up by the time I left there. I was there for about 4 years. And by the time I left there, I was paying, I believe it was something in like the $680 range. And then when I moved to my space here in the East Bay, my space here is a lot nicer. It's bigger and has more light and it's beautiful. I chose it myself. So that is about twice the amount of my last rent in the city. So still really good for rent of a space. I feel quite lucky that I got a space at that price. But at the time when I was moving, it felt like a big jump. Now, when I've thought about working for a shop again and looked into working as an employee or rather as a chair renter at a bigger shop, the rates I got were between 50%, no thank you, can't afford that, and something along the lines of like $1,200 a month being the rental of a chair, which, I pay a bit more than that in my rent, but I get to have my own space. So the next thing would be utilities. There's the cost of the internet, the costs of water and lights, electricity, right? The costs of heating, the costs of cooling, basic utilities. In both the shop and my home, I have to have internet in both places because I need to be able to get online, to print stuff, to look at references. So anyway, all those costs add up. Then we have also things like the cleaning team that I have at my shop, professional cleaners, regularly. So that costs a fair amount. We also have equipment and supplies. We need to buy, of course, the tattoo machines, the needles, the plastic tubes that we use that the needles go inside of, the cups, just like every little bit of plastic you see on the setup. All those things cost a fair amount. The inks, each ink bottle that I buy costs me about $20, $25. So, and also they do go bad, so you can't use them forever. And they do, you use them up sometimes, not always. They go bad, dry out, etc. a little faster than you usually use them up, at least me in my case, in the amount of ink that I use per client. So I spend a few $1,000s on just supplies every year. Next, what else do we have? We have, also I pay for things like the scheduling service. I pay for payment processing. I pay for insurance. I have pretty high insurance. You're supposed to have insurance as a tattoo artist. It's insurance for the space and insurance for like the experience, right? So like to protect me against any kind of like liability. Person hurts themselves in my shop, or if something happens, or if somebody has an experience with me that they want to sue me over. So I have insurance for that. It's quite costly. I have a licensing and permitting costs every year. I have to have an up-to-date bloodborne pathogen certification and also first aid. And I also have to pay the health department a pretty steep fee. It's like $1,500 to make sure that my shop is up to code, up to standards. So that's another cost. So all of that together ends up being like about $2,000 a year. Then we have marketing, advertising. I don't pay a lot for that, although I have paid a little bit of just tried here and there to buy ads on Instagram. It's not something that really works for me. Like it doesn't really get me very much attention. And so I don't do it. I've done it a few times. I don't do it regularly. And, but my time that I spend on marketing and advertising, spending my time on social media, putting up posts, making sure there's constant flow of eyes, answering comments, etc. That's time that I could spend tattooing. So that is definitely a cost to me. The next reason tattoos are expensive with me personally is because I am not able to work as much as I used to. I used to be at the shop 6, sometimes 7 days a week from like 10, 11 a.m. until 7, 8 p.m. every single day. I didn't care about time off. All I wanted to do was tattoo. And then over time, as I got more experience under my belt, I wanted to have some more time off. As I got into a more serious relationship and I was raising a child, I wanted to take a bit more time off of work. And so my schedule was something along the lines of like 5 days a week, like more of a normal schedule, but I was still there at the shop something like 10 or 11 a.m. to 7 or 8 p.m. So those were still very long days, and I was tired. And then the pandemic hit, and I did not work for a bunch of months, as a lot of us didn't who work with clients. And when I got back to it, I realized that my body could really only handle maybe 4, sometimes 5 days, sometimes 6 days, but I had to have some days that were just half days because I started post-pandemic working with just one client every day. And then I went to some of my days became 2 people days. And I realized that the days that I had 2 client days, I was a lot more tired and a bit more stressed than the days I had that were just one client. And I just decided that that is where I'm at. So given that I can't work quite as much, like physically, it's just very hard for me. I only have so many tattoos left in my body, in my life, and they're precious. So I had to up my rates in order to accommodate my capability, my capacity, and the time that I have in my life, and the things that I want to do, the work that I want to do. I realize I'm speaking from my own experience, and I'm explaining to you why tattoos with me specifically are so expensive. But I don't think I'm the only type of person in this industry that thinks about it in this way. I'm the person whose perspective I have, and so this is the perspective I give you. I wanted to add that I do offer sliding scale. It's on my website. You can see it clearly, and currently am doing a project and have done many projects in my life where I charge the person exactly what they were able to pay me, which was less than half of my hourly rate, or sometimes I did it for free, because I wanted to do the project and make sure that person got the experience that they needed to have with me, regardless of their ability to pay. Of course, I can't do that all the time, but I do that regularly, and that is the other reason. My regular hourly is expensive because the people who can afford to pay my regular hourly will subsidize my sliding scale for somebody else who cannot afford it. It's important to me to be able to offer my work to some people, regardless of their ability to pay, and so I do. In fact, one project that I have thought about for many years and have not so far been able to bring to fruition, but hope to potentially do at some point, is to register a nonprofit of a format where I and maybe another or other tattoo artists would be tattooing people who have tattoos or scars from drug use that prevent them from moving on in their life. So, for example, folks who are getting out of street sex work, and maybe have tattoos on their bodies that were done non-consensually to them, and if they don't want to get them removed, but rather tattooed over, that is something that I could do for them at, very, very low cost or no cost. And also people who have, for example, track marks on their arms that they feel very self-conscious about and find it difficult to get a job, get a place to live, date, for me and other people to cover up those scars with beautiful tattoo work that would make them feel a lot less self-conscious. It would be amazing. I have done that type of work, and I would love to do more of that type of work. Also covering up like hate tattoos on people who maybe got them consensually but no longer feel that they reflect who they are. Those types of projects is something I feel very passionate about and would love to do more of. At some point, it would be amazing to make that project a nonprofit and to get funding for it, get grants for it, and do a lot of it. But as of now, that is not something I have the bandwidth for. So, if you know somebody who is in that position and could use that kind of a service, send them my way. I would absolutely consider it. So to summarize, the reason why my hourly has to be as much as it is, which is currently $250 an hour, if you do the math, and you look at the $40,000 or so that I spend every year to run the business, and you look at the amount of time I can actually afford to work, and you look at the fact that I don't charge for process time, but just tattoo time, like actual time I'm on someone's skin, which is far, far from the time that I actually spend on each person. That is what you're paying for. All of that time, my expertise, my 15 years of experience, the types of art work on the skin that I do that are absolutely unique to me. I'm by far not the best tattoo artist out there. I'm also not the worst. There are things I do that are very unique to me, and there are things that I cannot do that other people can do. So I'm not saying that, I am the top of that world. I'm absolutely not. I am just me. And I do have 15 years of experience, though, and so that is partially what you're paying for. So if you do the breakdown, do the math, you will see why my hourly rate is high. But you will also see, if you look around the Bay Area, that it's very comparable to the other people working in the Bay Area. A lot of people who have their own shops, who run their own spaces, charge more. People charging $400, $450, $500 an hour. There are people charging $1,200 as a minimum for a client. And I do not want to do that, because I want to work with all kinds of people, and not only the people who have a lot of money. I really love my clientele, and I love being able to work with people from all walks of life and all slices of class in our society, and all the people who are differently talented at tricking the system we call capitalism. Here you go. Here's an explanation for why tattoos are so expensive, with the example being me and the work that I do. I so appreciate you tuning in and giving me a listen and following this podcast. Please follow it. Please like it. Please review it. I am going to be sending out an email very soon asking people to review and let me know who is reviewing, because I will be doing a drawing for Tattoo Time as a little prize, a little carrot on a stick, except I'll actually give you the carrot for those who choose to review me, because it really helps in my kind of project of the heart at this moment. And for this last 6 months is this podcast, and getting it listened to by people who don't know me yet and don't follow me, and who are out there just waiting to discover my podcast. I love you, and I will talk to you next week.